Behavioral patterns are concerned with algorithms and the assignment of responsibilities between objects. Behavioral patterns describe not just patterns of objects or classes, but also the patterns of communication between them. These patterns characterize complex control flow that's difficult to follow at runtime. They shift your focus away from flow of control to let you concentrate just on the way objects are interconnected. Behavioral class patterns use inheritance to distribute behavior between classes. Behavioral object patterns use object composition rather than inheritance. Besides the three patterns previously depicted, we can also find chain of responsibility, avoid coupling the sender of a request to its receiver by giving more than one object a chance to handle the request, chain the receiving objects, and pass the request along the chain until an object handles it. There's also the command pattern to encapsulate a request as an object, thereby letting you parameterize clients with different requests, queue or log requests, and support undoable operations. Interpreter is when, given a language, you define a representation for its grammar, along with an interpreter that uses the representation to interpret sentences in the language. Iterator, to provide a way to access the elements of an aggregate object sequentially without exposing its underlying representation. Mediator, define an object that encapsulates how a set of objects interact. Mediator promotes loose coupling by keeping objects from referring to each other explicitly, and it lets you vary their interaction independently. Memento, without violating encapsulation, capture and externalize an object's internal state so that the object can be restored to its state later. The state pattern, to allow an object to alter its behavior when its internal state changes, the object will appear to change its class. And finally, the visitor pattern, to represent an operation to be performed on the elements of an object structure. Visitor lets you define a new operation without changing the classes of the elements on which it operates. Behavioral design patterns complement and reinforce each other. A class in a chain of responsibility, for example, will probably include at least one application of template method. The template method can use primitive operations to determine whether the object should handle the request and to choose the object to forward to. The chain can use the command pattern to represent requests as objects. Interpreter can use the state pattern to define parsing contexts. An iterator can traverse a collection aggregate, and a visitor can apply an operation to each element in the aggregate.